Bill Clinton, no, Anita and Helga.
Hello. Welcome everybody to Roosendaal. We didn't know what to expect, how many people will be here, but it's still early and we already have around 300 people inside here, so very good. When you came in, you all got a little program, and there is a quiz on it, with which you can win nice prizes, including an autographed copy of the Monopoly game. So don't forget to put it at the entrance with the right answers, and you might be lucky.
Thank you. Well, this year we have a couple of nice guests. Later on we will have Leonard Oslund, who will tell you a lot of interesting facts about the Polar studios. Unfortunately, they are gone. Unfortunately, pop photographer Govert Rose was unable to come, and he was so kind to lend us some wonderful pictures, which you can see in the photo exhibition in the next room. And later we will have on stage a presentation with photos and stories.
Okay, and our first guest today is very excited to be here. When I googled some information about him, I saw quite a lot. He has worked for magazines, newspapers, wrote books, worked for television, radio, and he even played in a rock band, but that was a long time ago, I guess. But he's here because of his last project, which is ABBAday Museum. Please welcome Matthias Hansson.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. So I've heard so much about this events, and obviously a lot of friends has been here for many times, and I'm so happy to be here and see so many people here. It's amazing, wonderful. So I know that you guys knows a lot about ABBA. You know, obviously, a lot more about ABBA than I do, but. There's one thing that I have been very close to during the last couple of years, and it's ABBAday Museum in Stockholm. And I know for sure that some of you have already been there. And come to mind when I was deciding to go here that I would be happy to tell you a little bit about our inner thoughts when setting the museum up in only 10 months' time. So we had 10 months to set it all up, and it would have been totally impossible if we hadn't got the opportunity to take over the ABBA World exhibition that has been touring the world before us. So I'm going to show you a few slides about how we did when it comes to the setup of the museum in such a short time. And first of all, we had to find out what's impossible to find out. What's that? It's the inner soul of ABBA. And I guess that as many people we are here today, we have different versions of what the inner soul of ABBA is. When it comes to the songs, the lyrics, the orchestration, everything about ABBA has a soul for us who loves ABBA. But we had to involve a lot of people to set the museum up. And in such a short time, we also had to put something down on paper to be able to get everybody on board, because we know for sure that not all carpenters working with the museum would be ABBA fans. They might even be Iron Maiden fans, and they were. So we had to have an idea of what we thought the inner soul of ABBA was, something that we could build the museum upon. And I'm going to show you a few pictures of how that turned out. Next one, please. So for you guys who has been to the museum, which is situated in downtown Stockholm, this is how it looks like. And people get sometimes a little bit disappointed when they see this picture and then come to the museum, because this is not the museum. This is actually the Pop House Hotel. So everything, almost everything above ground is a Pop House Hotel. Newly bought by Björn Ulvaeus. So he is the owner to the full house, to the museum, and to the hotel and to the restaurant that's in the building also. But as some of you know, the museum is underground, and we decided to take the opportunity to be on this address because, in a Stockholm context, this is a very good address because just around the corner are some of the most visited tourist attractions in Stockholm: the Vasa Museum, the amusement park Gröna Lund, and the outdoor museum Skansen. And in the midst of that triangle, we got the opportunity to set up ABBAday museum. So that's really more from a Stockholm context, that it's a good place to be. And for you who has been here, also know that the shop, the ABBA merchandise shop, is also located on this ground floor, so there is windows at least. The museum area is only 800 square meters. We used to compare that to another big private museum in Stockholm called the Photographic Museum of Stockholm, which has also 300,000 visitors a year, which we have at ABBAday Museum. The Photographic Museum also has 300,000 visitors, but they have 7,000 square meters and we have 800. So it's usually more crammed and stuffed with people at our place. This is from the opening day. And from the opening day also Mr. Björn Ulvaeus stood here on the roof and telling all the visitors that this was a way for him and the city of Stockholm to fulfill a dream of having a full house of music. So now when he's also an owner to the hotel and the restaurant, it will probably be not so long before the full house is really a music house. Next one, please. So we decided early on to try to stick to the true story. However, as you might know, there is no official biography written on ABBA. There is no official documentary being made and so forth. So actually we had quite a hard time to get the real official story, but we were determined to go for the true story. And then we found a way, because we decided to have an audio guide at the museum. And the 4 ABBA members at a quite early stage said yes to being the speakers at audio guide. And the audio guide was being done like this. Catherine Johnson, you know, the writer from Mamma Mia, interviewed all the 4 members of ABBA about the history of ABBA. And then she went back to England and rewrote the interviews and edited, and went back to Sweden and went through it all with Björn, Benny, Agneta and Frida, and they decided on the end text. And the end text is the text that they later recorded and as speakers and it's now in the audio guide. And it might be different opinions on this one, not at least in this house, but we tend to say that the audio guide in the museum is the only place in the world where ABBA themselves tells the true story about ABBA. So around that text and around that story, we built the story about the museum. At an early stage, Björn Ulvaeus also entered the stage as a museum owner, because he said that finally, we had said no to an ABBA museum for more than 30 years. And when we now say yes, some of us has to be there to make sure that it really tells the true story. It was a very, very important thing for him and the other ABBA members. So Bjorn also decided that the museum should be built around stories. You know, he's a great storyteller, and he wanted to tell the stories in different rooms. So that's why the museum is had been made as it is and layouted as it is. So we really tried to stick to the true story. And still we have that time pressure on us to make it really, really fast. Next one, please. So let's go back and look into pop and rock history. So many artists out there that is still around and still playing. And so sad for all of us. ABBA always has said no to a reunion. And some of the other artists out there, they don't have to reunite because they have been together for always and still are. And they do the best to try to look the same year after year after year. And that's what Björn has told me, that however we might we do it, we will not look the same, and we will disappoint people if we enter the stage today. Next one, please. Here's another one who has been quite good in remaining in shape. Mick Jagger actually visited ABBAday museum last summer because he has heard that it was a good place to find ideas while when he is now setting up a Rolling Stones museum in London. So he took about between 200 and 300 pictures with his mobile phone in the museum. So I didn't get the opportunity to ask him about his favorite ABBA song, but I'm sure that he has some. Next one. And next one. And this is ABBA. So this is the ABBA we remember from the heydays when they were together as a band. And this is pretty newly shot pictures of ABBA. And they still wanted us to stick true to the story. And true to the story of ABBA is the story between approximately 1972 and 1982, as you know. So that is the story that we try to tell at the museum. Next one, please. So this is actually one of the pictures that we used setting up the museum. This is a picture that's pretty good, we think. There's so many pictures, we all have our favorites. But we decided that this is one of the pictures that pretty good tells the story about one of the world's best selling pop artists in the history of pop music. For so many reasons. The clothes, the Swedishness. I know that lots of you guys has been to Sweden many times, and I'm brought up in Sweden, and I think that I can really be sure that this is a picture shot in Sweden. However, probably someone in here can help me who shot it. Is it the Booby Heileman picture? It is, yeah. So he usually shot many of the iconic 1970s pictures of ABBA for Bravo and other magazines. So next one, please. So growing up in Sweden in the 1970s, this was a sense that you had of ABBA from local magazines and from Swedish media all the time. They were very keen on letting journalists into their homes and houses and private lives during those days, even into the bedrooms. We have all seen the bedroom pictures from Björn and Agneta's bedroom. They would not do that today, I can assure you. But this all together created a sense of everyday people. In Sweden, we know that ABBA were world-famous superstars, but we could never really connect them to the superstars that bear name like Elton John, Led Zeppelin, Queen, and all the other big 1970 stars. Because for us, through media, there were always those, people next door. So this was an important element when we set up the museum. We have to picture that part of ABBA. And Björn and the rest of the ABBA members were also very keen on that. For example, they say, people think that we ran around in limousines just because we're on that record cover in a great car. In reality, we were in that car for approximately 15 minutes when the photo was shot. And I've been in the room when Björn got questions about his clothing during the 1970s. Small kids come to him and ask, how was it wearing those platform shoes and capes in glittery fabrics? And he said, usually I don't remember because it was so silly. I used them on some photo shoots and sometimes on stage. But I, says Björn, remember the 70s as wearing clogs, jeans and t-shirts. Because that was what he was said to usually use. So this is pictures from the archives, which we used also, trying to find in just a few weeks a picture of the inner soul of ABBA. I'm not taking on responsibility for finding the inner soul of ABBA, because I think it's still a secret with many dimensions. But we tried our best, and we used pictures and music to get there. Next one, please. So this was another thing happening during the same time, and we just used this one because we thought that this was not. This was the other big artist during the 1970s. They used to do stuff like this, and ABBA was something else. Next one, please. ABBA was more like this. This is a classic for all of you who has been to the Stockholm archipelago. This is a typical picture from there. And you see the clogs and the jeans and the usually commercial t-shirts for different brands. And as you might know, during those days, usually they didn't get paid to have those t-shirts as artists have. It's being done as it's being done today. They use t-shirts because they like them. And they were on the picnic. I think there's still at this time beer on the menu. And probably some potatoes, some sour cream, and Swedish sill, the herring. So this is much more of the inner soul of ABBA that we wanted to recreate at the museum. Next one, please. And here, for you who hasn't got the opportunity to come visit yet, this is 4 pictures from the museum. That some of them, I think, really shows what it's all about. So this is a room with a 1970s wallpaper. Maybe some of you remember it. Growing up in Sweden, that was a typical wallpaper that we had in our kitchen when I grew up. And a lot of my friends also had in their homes. And this is the writing hut where Björn and Benny wrote many of the biggest songs, the most well-known ABBA song, out on Viksö in the Stockholm archipelago. That was also important for us to show at the museum because it's approximately 5 square meters big. And it holds an old, very, very, very bad Irish school piano with plastics inside. And that was used by Benny. And a not so high fashioned acoustic guitar which Björn used. In that environment, on those 5 square meters, on that terrible piano, and that not so good guitar, they wrote some of the best pop songs in pop history. So that was also important for us to show that they weren't really They were so much into the songwriting and the work in the studio. And here is an excerpt from the Polar studio we built at ABBAday Museum. So spending the time with the family and then writing songs and record them, that was their main focus. And among Swedish musicians, also in the world, but I know most of Swedish musicians, and amongst them ABBA, Björn and Benny, and the session musicians are well known for being the musicians and people most focused on details. So they spent a lot of time to make those perfect recordings in there of those perfect songs that they wrote up there. So that's what we hear today, and probably it's a part of why we still love them. It's timeless. And now you're here for the 29th time, is that correct? Something like that. It's amazing. Yeah, a big hand for that one. Well done all the others that make this happen. Wonderful. And you know what? Even though that we are not here then, I think it will be here in 300 years' time also, because it's timeless music, and ABBA is more to be considered as a modern Mozart or Beethoven or whatever you call all the big classics. Next one. So here's another one that we decided to use. We were so keen on being there, telling the true story. Not confuse if you see one disco-ish picture of ABBA. It probably, on one of those pictures, you have 10 like this. So we decided that this is more the ABBA-like style. And as you guys know, the 4 ABBA members were already big stars in Sweden. Everybody know them. They were big stars in their own right. So when they suddenly showed themselves together in pictures like this, they were considered a supergroup, and it also was great for everybody to see that they were just, you know, ordinary people. Next one, please. In the audio guide, they decided to tell the true story all the way. Also to give us who worked with the museum a hint that don't fake it, tell the true story. It was like a fairy tale. They met, they became 2 couples, married, and then divorced and broke up as couple and as band. And they really tells everything about that in the audio guide. And I just used this picture to illustrate what happened at the bitter end, even though probably was not so much of a bitter end, more a natural ending, or as they continue to say, a pause, which make us all hope. Okay, next one, please. So, working with this amazingly, incredibly great pop band. The first question I had when I met Nia from Polar, who owns the brand ABBA, was, can I see the brand book, please? You know that all the brands nowadays has big, thick brand books that tells the story about the brand and what can be done and what cannot be done and so forth. So I, just asked me if I could see the brand book. It would help me setting the museum up in such a short time. And she just laughed her lovely smile, with her lovely smile. She said there is no brand book. The brand book is in the heads of Björn, Benny, Frida and Agneta. You have to ask them. There is nothing ever written about the brand. They just have it in their heads. They are the brand. And they have decided that nothing has to be written about it. So I saw all those carpenters and mechanics and people coming into the address, starting to build the museum, and listening to Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath in their headphones, and I said, I have to get those people to understand what we're doing here. So So we worked it through with my dear colleges, Ingmarie and Katharina, and the rest of them, at the museum to try to find a few buzzwords that we could work around. I won't take you through the full work process for that. Even though it just took a couple of weeks, we ended up with 3 keywords that was important to capture what we thought were the inner soul of ABBA. It's heart, humor, and quality. And heart is because when we interviewed and talked to all the people who has worked with ABBA during the years, when they were active as a band, everybody said that it was so heartful, they were so kind. People who has worked with other artists, one lighting engineer come to me and said, I have been working with Led Zeppelin on a tour when I went from Led Zeppelin to ABBA, and it was like working in day and night. When I came to ABBA, the band members came, looked us in the eyes, asked for our names, remembered our names, and then continuously came and talked to us each and every day. There was lots of heart on the tours and in the studio and wherever ABBA were. They were really keen on getting everybody on board. So we thought that was an important keyword. Humor was another thing. Everybody said it was so fun working with them. We always laughed. We laughed in the studio. Quite a few of the people from the studio, and I guess that Leonard will tell you later this day also, said that I don't remember how I played that or when I played that, but I remember that we laughed a lot. It was really, really fun. And many of them say that that's probably one of the reasons that the result came out so good, because it was really a fun environment to be in. And when you see some of the footage being taken backstage before and after concerts and on touring, you can see that there's really a heartful and humorous feeling in the room. So heart and humor was important, and then of course quality. But then again, who that work with brands says that they want to do things without quality? No one does. But when talking about ABBA, you have a very special sense of quality, since one of the reasons when you hear the songs today is that they spend so much extra time in the studio trying to make the perfect pop song. And I've been told that usually in the morning the technicians came, and then Bjorn and Benny came, and then the musicians came, and then the girls came, and then the girls went, and then the musicians went, and then Bjorn and Benny and Mika Betretov sat there hour and hour and hour and tried to refine that day's work. So quality was a important keyword for us setting up the museum. However, quality in the ABBA sense doesn't mean that it has to be the usual. It doesn't have to be the that everything is made in marble or gold or diamonds. It's not that kind of quality. It's the quality you get when you have heart and humor. It's that quality. So these 3 words were actually the ones that we tried to discuss with the Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden fans working with the museum. I have to say, I have nothing against Black Sabbath or Iron Maiden. I just use them as an illustration of probably something that many people see as an opposite to the ABBA world. Okay, next one. So we continuously worked digging our way in the archives with pictures. And here's a few other great pictures with Schultz's boobies, I think. And I really like them because they're so representative for the music era back in the 1970s, where actually, as in this case, photographer were able to get pop stars to do anything, and it was part of the show. And Björn has told me that usually photographers came with a box with stuff in, clothes and stuff. And we just looked down in that box and laughed and said, this is ridiculous, but let's do it, it's show. Let's do it like this. And then we put those clothes on and we had some fun in the studio, and then we went away. Okay, next one. So with that knowledge as a base, the heart, the humor and the quality, we really tried to work the museum through, telling the story about ABBA, having the ABBA members to tell the true story themselves in the audio guide. And it has turned out that it works really well for us to continue use those buzzwords or keywords when we do other stuff for the museum. Here's one thing that I want to tell you a little bit more about. It's the pop story. The pop story is written by Björn Ulvaeus, and it's a story of ABBA. In Swedish, the book is named The Story of ABBA, or The Story About ABBA. The pop story is a beautifully written and illustrated by a Swedish illustrator named Ulla Skogen. Actually a story that Björn wanted to write so he can tell his grandchildren what Granddaddy did in the 70s, because they wonder. And we also did a animated movie of the book that is shown at the museum. I think it's really a beautiful way of re-exploring ABBA through the eyes of a grown-up who was in the middle of it, telling children about his experiences. It's as close as you can get to the real story, I think. Because obviously Björn has also checked this one out with the 3 other members. Because early on we learned that they live in a total democracy. So everything that's being done in the brand is discussed with all 4 ABBA members. And they say yes or they say no, and they usually say no. So they say no, no, no to almost everything all the time. And then from time to time they say yes to something. So for sure I know that they have said yes to this one. So this is probably as close as you get to the true ABBA story. Told through one of them who was in the center of it to small kids. It's a wonderful book. And making all those merchandise and stuff that we have in the museum, we try to always go back to think about if it suits the keywords. Does it have heart? Does it have humor? Does it have quality? And when we do that, we tend to also say no to most of the stuff that people want to sell in the store. And usually it ends up with us doing the most of the merchandise ourselves. So probably 90 to almost 100% of the stuff being sold at ABBAday Museum or at our web shop is stuff that we have produced from the museum side. We also had this picture there because we also have had a wedding, a beautiful wedding at the museum. So there's a possibility to have weddings at the museum, and that was really great. And first, when the idea came up, we have a heart-shaped door at the museum, and when that was ready, I really thought that it would be great to have weddings in that small chapel at the museum. And I asked one of the technicians who was earlier on listening to Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden building the museum, if he wanted to, because I know that he should marry. And he said yes, not only to his now wife, but also to me. So he had, and they had their marriage at the museum. And we tried to do that with humor, heart, and with high quality. So we always go back to that. So it has been very, very good for us. Okay, as you might know or understand by now, I can talk about this kind of stuff for hours and hours and hours, and I will be happy to do that with you guys later on, but I will not take more time from the stage. But I want to hand over this pop story book by Björn Ulvaeus to to Helga, and thank you for letting me come and visit you. ABBA forever. See you guys.
Thank you. And I also have a gift for you. A typical Dutch, nice
Oh, wonderful.
cookies.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I will be happy to talk to anybody after this. See you.
Okay, thank you. And we will now continue with the DVD show and be back later with the next guest.
Wide. Today's guest is an icon, a legend, and part of one of the biggest acts in musical history, ABBA. Back with her first solo album in